Hey, Chris,
Yeah, Fred.
what's a Mason?
That's a really good question, Fred.
You've reached the internet's home for all things masonry. Join Chris and I as we plumb the depths of our ancient craft. From the common gavel to the trowel, nothing is off the table. So grab your tools and let's get to work. This is On the Level. Oh, yeah. We are back. We are back. Wow. Wow. Happy holidays, brother.
Hey, happy
What?
holidays.
The reason I say that right off the bat is because, yikes, man, the holidays are getting in the way of our podcasting. Yikes. Getting in the way of
Family.
everything. Oh, my gosh.
It's like life doesn't want us to have hobbies.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Is this a hobby? I guess it is.
So,
It's-
yeah.
It's a hobby.
We love it. And we
It's-
don't get paid to do it. I'd say it's a hobby.
It's a hobby. It's a hobby. Absolutely. Right on, man. Right on. Well, if you are listening to us right now, you are thinking to yourself, yeah, thanks, guys. You dropped the ball last week. Where was last week's podcast? Well, last week's podcast is this week's podcast because Chris and I both are just absolutely bonkers, out of control busy.
Yeah.
With so many, not only Masonic stuff, but just life in general has just thrown some major curves our way, man.
Yeah.
Are you
It's
wanting to talk
good.
a little bit about what's going on in your life?
I had the song from Weird Al pop into my head when you were talking about us abandoning the listeners.
Yes.
We left them all alone in the gas station of love, and they had to use the self-service pump.
Oh.
Yeah, that's an old Weird Al song.
Weird Al is awesome.
I love it.
We love Weird Al.
Oh, there's a cool movie about his life.
Oh, I saw it.
It's like a joke about his movie, you know? It's
Right,
funny,
right.
man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like a documentary, but
Yeah,
not
but-
really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
way overdone in satire.
Yeah. He's great. Back from the Dr. Demento days.
Oh, God, you're familiar with Dr. Demento?
94.7 KMET
Wow.
Los Angeles in the 80s, Sunday nights at 7 o'clock. Dr. Demento. There's some people out there who are just like, I can't believe he just said that.
I know.
They remember it. So,
I
yeah.
never heard of it until I saw that movie, and I wasn't even sure if it was real.
Dude, I'm so old. I
It's
listen to
real.
it live.
Wow. Oh, wow.
I used to listen to it live, man, because I was that kind of a weird geek.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have, too, if I was listening to the radio back then.
It was so inappropriate. I
Really?
mean, by today's
At that
standard.
time,
oh
yeah.
my gosh,
Today, it's probably like
it
child's
would
play.
be absolutely banned.
Oh, really?
On every social media
Oh, wow.
platform. Absolutely. Some of the stuff. What's that one song? Pencil Neck Geek, Gritty Freak, Scum Sucking Peahead with a Lousy Physique.
Oh, my God.
Nothing but a pencil neck geek. This is a song that
That's
they
harsh.
played. Oh, I know. Dr. Demento played that song every time.
He just liked weird stuff that
Oh,
wasn't like
dude.
mainstream, basically.
Way off mainstream. Way off. You were a total geek, weirdo geek, if you were into Dr. Demento, which apparently I was. I don't know. I guess I was. I never really thought about it.
Weird Al couldn't have existed without that.
I mean, I pulled that song right out of memory just now.
He must have really had it in there.
It must have been in
really
there
had
deep,
it in there.
deep. I had Demento deep in the psyche, man.
Your brain was dementoized.
So you've got a few changes going on.
Yes.
In your life. You want to talk a little bit about that, or you want to just save that
Yes.
for never?
Yes, the surgery's planned. My name will be Christine.
So
No,
the-
I'm kidding. That's not true.
A brain is available, and the transplant is ready.
The transplant's ready. It's a discount because it's missing some serious amounts of neuron.
You and me
connections.
both, brother.
No, I actually wound up being one of the, I think, 300,000 people that took advantage of the housing market in Florida, sold my house, and I'm buying a home a little further north, but still in the south. About an 8-hour drive from here in South Carolina. I'll be relocating to Sumter, South Carolina.
Woo!
Yeah. So that's going to be a big change for me, and it's all happening before Christmas.
Well, I know.
I live in Florida, and I thought, you know what? Let me see. My house has appreciated so much value. I'll just list it at the ridiculously high end, and I got a cash offer inside of a week, and it was
Yikes.
not what I listed it at, but it was at the number I had in my head of if someone offered this, I'd really do
Folks,
this.
I know that number. It's
Yeah.
bonkers.
It's stupid that still this is happening. Someone's buying houses cash for that
Cash
much
money
Can you
for that
imagine?
much. Yeah, right?
But then, my wife, whom you know, has impeccable taste, and so they're like, we want everything in the house. So I'm starting.
Even
like-
your piano?
The piano I kept.
Oh,
I
good for
fought
you.
for my piano.
You fought for the piano. Good for
literally,
you,
all
brother.
I'm keeping is my bedroom set, my clothes, my books, and my piano.
Right
they
on,
bought
brother.
everything else. Everything.
That is so awesome. The robot? Did they buy the robot?
No.
Oh, okay.
You
Good.
think they would know about that robot? I thought it was a toy. I do have a robot. I have an Astro, Amazon Astro in my house. That's what
I
he's
know.
talking about.
He's so cool.
He's cool. It's like a little mobile Alexa. He follows you around with a screen face and answers anything. And
Little creepy sometimes.
always watching.
Always watching. Yeah,
It
a
is
little creepy. Yeah.
Yeah, you're watching TV and you look over and the thing's just staring at you, just blinking, and you're like, "What? Get out of here!" We literally get away, go, and he has to run off and charge because he's creepy.
He's a little creepy. Anyway,
But
so
yeah, that's happening.
so what's going to happen with the podcast? What's going to happen with Freemasonry in Florida, 147? What's going on with all that, man?
Well, you tell me what's happening with 147. I definitely done the best I could with everything that I've done in Freemasonry. I'm hoping that I'm allowed to continue to work in all the things that I've been doing, including membership in Florida, especially in our lodge. I
Yeah.
want to continue to make the calls and set up appointments.
Yeah, right.
I have a business here in Florida, so I'll be headquartered in Lakewood Ranch, Florida. So I'll be
Nice.
coming back here at least once a month, and I'm going to try to arrange those around our stated meeting nights, so I can be at least a somewhat useful past master to our lodge.
Right.
And this podcast is going to switch from third gear into fifth gear.
That's
We're not
right.
even
That's
going
right.
into
We've
fourth
already
gear.
got a plan, guys. We've already got
We're
a
going
plan
to
in
open
place.
this bitch up on the highway and just let it go.
This is the year of OTL, man. It is going to happen. So I'm setting up a studio in my home, in my man cave, so that Chris can call in
From my man cave.
from his man cave, and we'll do it remotely, and nothing will change on your guys' end as far as the podcast is concerned. It'll be exactly the same,
Higher quality.
just higher quality,
more quantity.
more quantity, and it'll just and now we're going to do OTL from 2 different states.
Yeah.
Which I think is great because I'm sure you're going to get involved locally in Masonic life up there. I just can't imagine you not doing
see.
that.
We'll see. All their lodges only meet once a month there, so it's like, wow.
Wow.
I called around and asked a couple lodges. There is one old one 5 minutes from me that we'll be looking at eventually.
How cool is that?
But that's 2 states that we'll be in physically. But we're getting intertwined into Texas a little bit more.
Yep.
And
Texas
We'll
is
be talking to some people there. Probably traveling at some point there.
Yep.
Maybe we'd even go to their Grand Lodge.
I would love it. Love it. Love it.
I mean,
Love
we
it.
got a lot going on in January, so probably not this year.
Right.
We have our Masonic Education Symposium.
Yes, the 13th of January. Did you get your tickets? Did you get your tickets?
I can
Did you
confirm
get your tickets? I'm talking to you, listener.
They have
get-
not got their tickets.
Yeah.
Get
All
your
right.
tickets.
We got 70 plus commitments and X
Yeah.
amount of sold. So get your tickets because this is what happens. There is a limited amount of seating for this event. And what's going to happen is as soon as we get into the holidays, into mid-December, those tickets are going to start flying off the shelf. So get them now.
Yeah.
And, of course, you want to get them online, not at the door, because they're going to be more expensive at the door. So
Yeah, go to onthelevelwithfredandchris.com and you'll see it right there on
Yep.
the homepage. And
Yep.
it'll explain who's going to be there. You'll get the whole schedule. We'll have Masonic speakers like Juan Sepulveda.
I'm not even going to try it.
Juan?
I haven't had enough coffee. Juan, we love you, bro.
Yeah, well, he's a great speaker.
Yeah, he's going to be awesome.
He'll be talking about communion with the divine. That involves a lot of astronomy and
Right.
masonry.
He's heavily into that, man.
Woo! I love it.
Yeah. He's a great speaker. He's very engaging. It's awesome. And our other speakers,
Daniel Molina out of Miami.
Yeah.
Worshipful Daniel Molina out of Miami. He'll be speaking about Stoicism
Yeah.
and Freemasonry.
yeah,
Man, there's a real connection between Stoicism and Freemasonry, and I can't wait to hear about it. Sepulveda. I'm
There you
going
go.
with Sepulveda. And we have
That
Rene
is correct.
Perez out of New York. He's a Mason out of New York that's coming to speak. And our keynote speaker will be our very own Talia Atala,
that's going to be great.
the senior grand warden
Yeah.
of Freemasonry, will be there to give a talk. He doesn't want to give a speech. He wants to have a conversation. So
Yeah.
come out and have a conversation with Right Worshipful Talia Atala about the future of Freemasonry.
Man, that's going to be. I think that. I love the fact that he did that. He was like, yeah, I'll do it, but I'm not
Yeah.
going to stand up there
No.
and give a speech. We're going to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all about. You guys know that. That's what this podcast
Oh,
is all about,
music to
man.
my ears.
Yeah,
I was
man.
like, really?
That's going to be great. I'm
So
really
we had a
looking
little
forward to
mock conversation for like 30 minutes, and he was so excited. I'm like, it's going to be just like this.
that. Just like this, only better. That's right. That's right. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, big changes in your life, brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to I just want to congratulate you, and I told you this when you first told me about it on the phone, and I'm going to say it on air as well. You, sir, are a badass. Okay, because
Thank you.
You had a dream, you had a vision.
Yeah.
And you followed that vision, and it paid off in a really magnificent way.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you right now, 99% of the men out there would not do that. So there's a lot of people who have the opportunity. They have everything they need at their disposal to do it, and they don't do it for fear.
Fear
And
is a
you
big
and you
deal.
did it. And
Fear
you
is-
did it.
It's real. The fear is real.
The fear is real. It is real. But look at what happened. Look at what
Yeah.
happened.
Well, they say when you're on the path will appear to you.
Yeah, well, it certainly did for you, brother.
Everything just lined up and was pointing me that now's your time. Like
Yeah.
if you're going to do it, now's the time. And so I acted. You know how we roll.
I know. Yeah, that's right.
I'm
That's
not
how we
gonna-
roll.
I'm not going to shy away from an opportunity that life gives me. So I took it. And so far, things appear to be lining up, which is always encouraging.
Right. Yeah.
You know, when things start falling apart, you start to question yourself. Like, wait, am I making a horrible mistake? But luckily, nothing's fallen apart. Everything just lined up in my business, in
Yeah.
my personal life, and all of the things that had to happen for me to get to this point so quickly.
And it doesn't change anything for you with regard to Florida Masonry. You're just a
No.
dual membership.
My home lodge will always be Sarasota Lodge 147.
Right.
At my funeral will be read as my home lodge.
Right. That's right.
And I hope you're there to help with those services.
Yeah, I'm a little older than you, so I probably won't be there for your funeral, brother.
Yeah,
but
I'll be
you
out
will
in the
be there
boonies,
for mine.
you know. Who knows? I might shoot myself in the face accidentally with a shotgun because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, that's not happening either. So
But yeah, I got several acres up there and a much bigger home and a lot of money in my pocket, which I was reading, you know, we're living through one of the greatest migrations in human history right now.
it's true.
The amount of people migrating, in Florida. Just
Yeah.
look at Florida. How
It's-
many people flocked here from New York and California?
I just met you guys know that I changed jobs and decided to start my own business, go back into plumbing.
How's that
And
going?
it's going well. It's going really well. I met the networking is going very well, but it's just my ability to, and anybody starting a small trades business knows this. Lead generation is always abundant, but it's a full-time job to stay on top
Working
of
your
it.
leads, yeah.
Working
Oh,
those
yeah.
leads it's tough. And so once I get that settled, then this is going to be very lucrative for sure. There's no doubt about that. But I met through networking a young man. He calls himself Bobby, but he's Ukrainian
Oh, really?
from Oregon. Speaking of mass migration, he and his entire Ukrainian community
Yeah. Is he in
migrated. Huh?
Northport? Are they in Northport?
Some of them are in Northport. Yeah.
There's a big Ukrainian community in Northport.
Well, they all migrated here, and they want me, and they're all loaded. Okay,
Really?
they're all absolutely loaded
Are
because
they
they've
from Oregon, or did they pass? Like, is this part of the war migration?
no,
Okay.
they were from Oregon. The war migration came to Oregon, obviously, but their he looked me in the eye. He said the values of Oregon are not the values of us, and we decided to move to Florida, and they all moved here, and there's like 30 of them that came with their families, their money, their business opportunities, everything. They just poured into Florida, and this is not an isolated issue. So
No.
this is the mass, like you said, mass migration
From everywhere.
is happening to right. It's coming all over, to all different places, which is creating a lot of opportunity.
Yes.
And so
And creating a lot of traffic.
we get used to it, folks. Here in Florida, you might as well get used to it. All of Florida is going to become Orlando in season. So and you can just see it here in Bradenton and Sarasota. They just cleared enough land over on Conquistador. If you don't live here, you don't know where that is. But Conquistador is going towards northwest Bradenton. And it was just a 2-lane road forever and ever. Well, it used to be tulip fields many, many years ago, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres of flat land out there. They now announce a development of 6,500 dwellings
Oh boy.
on that
We're gonna sink
stretch.
Florida. It's too heavy. Give us some weight here, guys.
They're saying that 70% of those 6,500 dwellings are already spoken for.
Holy cow. Yeah, I mean, think about it. Ever since COVID, it's been really, I mean, we've always been a vacation, a place where people come to
Right,
have a
right.
second home or retire.
Because of the summers, everybody wanted to leave during the summer.
And we have the beautiful beaches.
Right.
And we got Disney, all this good stuff. But ever since COVID, it's been on another level. The
Yeah.
amount of migration here has been insane. Our property
Insane.
values have been skyrocketing, and rent has gone way up.
Way up.
So what's happened is I'm one of like 300,000 people that have left Florida, that are
Right.
from Florida,
Yeah.
because all these people have come, driven up all the costs, and now the natives are leaving. And they're generally going to North and South Carolina and some
Correct.
Georgia and Tennessee, places like that.
Yep.
And now, we're bringing all of our values there, and all of these people have come here and are bringing all of their. What I find crazy about it is, it's like we've always had a lot of New Yorkers, right? And I
Right.
don't know how many I've met. They're like, yeah, I'm from Brooklyn, whatever. And it's like, you're so proud to be from that place, but you also wanted to get the hell out of that place.
Right.
And you're really bringing it with you. All
Yeah.
the culture, all the things that you
That's
both
right.
love and hate, you're bringing here. So it's going to be, you can, wherever you go, you're still going to be there, right?
Right. Right.
And I feel like they're bringing a lot of their issues with them. to
It's
Florida.
true. It's true. That happens. Hopefully, the majority of people who uprooted their entire lives because of, the environment, their community was turning into something they didn't want. Hopefully they'll come here and they won't bring that part with them. They'll remember why they left. It's
Yeah.
a big deal. Right now. You're going
yeah.
through it right now. It's a big deal to uproot your life, especially in a 30-day period. You literally did this in 30 days.
Yeah.
You just like
Yeah.
pulling a tooth right out of your head with no
Yeah.
Novocaine is what you did.
Yeah.
So you're going to remember the reasons why. And I'm hoping that the majority of people who come down here remember the reasons why they left. New York State is an absolute terrible place to live. We have family up there, and they tell us. I have family in California. Same thing. They tell, don't come here.
Got the state tax. You got the.
Well, and it's just that the entire system is so broken. California is falling apart. The roads, the bridges, the buildings, the government facilities,
It's like
everything is completely in disarray and falling apart. Yet the cost of living there is continuing to rise higher and higher and higher and
same
higher.
in New York,
And the same thing in New York,
I
right?
complain to my friends in New York about the cost of living here, and they laugh like, "Yeah, that's expensive. Try
Yeah.
living in Manhattan."
Yeah, no, the property taxes are, closely becoming six-figure, opportunities for the government. It's like,
Yeah.
it's becoming an absolutely unsustainable place to live. And we're traveling to Washington, D.C. Here this weekend to go up to
Tomorrow. If
tomorrow.
you're listening to this Wednesday morning.
Yeah, that's right. Tomorrow. Jeez, I am not ready. And Washington.
You are ready, sir. Excuse me, sir.
If you're not ready, you are ready. Washington D.C. same thing, man. It's just it's a ridiculously crowded, expensive, dirty. The nation's capital is falling apart. The infrastructure's broken. The whole system is broken. Anyways, why am I going down this road? They got some great
You
bars
can drink yourself happy in D.C.
that you can do that, and we probably will.
Well, yeah, just happy, not sad. Drink ourselves sad. is
Not
bad.
sad,
Drink
no.
yourself happy is.
I'm
good
not
thing.
sad. I'm not sad.
I'm not sad
I'm
either.
optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stress. Stress level is through the roof.
Yep,
but
me too.
the there's a serious excitement to what's happening in my life, and I think in yours too.
Absolutely.
Your life is turned upside down as well.
Yep.
You lost someone that you love.
Yep.
Your job is changing after all this time.
Yeah.
You got a lot of change happening all at once as well.
Yep.
Isn't it weird how that works? It's like our cycles have lined up. We're menstruating together
Oh.
through life.
Oh, that's gross.
I know, but it's true. My life is as upside down as yours right
Right.
now.
I know, right? We're kind of on this path. Well,
And the
I-
one thing that we both agreed has got to be center is this show.
yeah, that's
no
right.
matter what craziness is happening.
The
this has
show
gotta be
is
a
an
priority.
anchor. It's an anchor, and it will go forward. We both committed to 2024 is OTL's year.
Yeah.
We are going to kick this thing to the next level. and see where God brings us on the other side of this is what we're going to do. And that's what I've been praying for. I am, as people know, a man of prayer. I pray every morning. And my prayer has been that my walk and my understanding of God would become so entrenched in who I am and what I do. And my caution to everyone out there is careful what you pray for, because you might get it. So be very careful. I am grateful that I am getting what I've asked for, but this is part of that upheaval of my entire life. 2023 was a year for me of reorganizing and reprioritizing my life and the things that matter to me most. And then, well, if you're reorganizing and reprioritizing things, what does that mean? Well, it means that the new year, this new year, is time to put some things into action.
Yeah.
You know, and to see where this goes. And the podcast, the business I'm starting, your business is changing. You're going to a remote situation, which has its challenges, but also has a lot of benefits to it. You know.
Oh yeah.
So you'll be freed up to do a lot more. And
there was a sense of failure in that we've been planning to do this for like years.
Right.
So we've been doing the hybrid thing, trying to test the waters. But you know, I've really been the holdout of doing the remote thing because I feel I'm old fashioned. In so many things, I'm old-fashioned.
Right.
And I really believe, just a group of people sitting in an office together gives you different opportunities than working remotely.
It's always going to be optimal. Face-to-face office conference is always going to be optimal, but
people don't want that.
But people don't want
They
it.
want to be home, and they don't want to pay for the gas and deal with the travel. Like, I'm stubbornly holding on. So now we made the decision before. That decision is what allowed us to take the other steps of let's see. Hey, what the heck? Let's see. So now that I'm talking to other friends that have similar businesses, they've all been full remote for a long time.
Right.
Even huge. There's a company that sold for $1 billion.
Wow.
It's a big company that's in my industry, and they've been full remote since COVID.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, what am I doing over here?
And they're making it. It's working. Right.
Obviously, you can do it. And so once, you make the hard decision, a lot of other things start to line up. And that's
right.
What you said. There's some kind of providence that I'm not questioning. I'm here to walk the path.
Right on, man.
We're warriors. We're here to do the work.
Right.
We will fight.
We will fight,
but
we're not
help.
cowards. We won't shy away.
We need a little upstairs help sometimes.
I was going to say, speaking of cowards, but let's let that one go.
I'm right here.
No, not
Wait
you.
until I'm not in front of you.
Not you. But anyway, so what's going on at the lodge lately? What's 147 up to? And then we'll get into our content here in a second.
We're full on doing a Toys for Tot drive, trying to raise some money to buy toys and to actually get toys for the kids in our area.
Right. Yep.
This is kind of new for us. We haven't done this in some years, trying to be so out in our community. And I really got to give it to Alberto Pateau, who's the chairman of our charity committee. He's rallying a lot of people in support.
Yeah.
It's not obviously just him, but the guy's doing his job.
He is.
And I got to give him credit for that.
Big time, man. He really he took it seriously.
It's a thankless job that we do a lot of the stuff in Freemasonry. And so, if you wind up in a leadership position, please take the time to thank the people that are working hard. They deserve it. That's the only currency we have.
Right.
Pay them their wages.
Pay them their wages.
The man deserves to be recognized for what he's doing. And he's come in 3 times this week to decorate the lodge and put a tree up.
That's awesome, man. He's a great
and
dude.
others that are with him in the committee. Sean Cooney is another one, I think, driving a lot of that.
Yep. Yeah, Sean. Shout out to Sean. Absolutely.
This is why I'm okay with it, I think. Our lodge is in a totally different place than it was a few years ago.
Absolutely.
And I feel like it's just strong.
It's strong right now. Everything's good.
Everything's good.
And we have elections coming up.
Yes.
So that'll solidify the outcome of those elections, and the changes that have to be made there will solidify the future of the lodge. There's a lot of things that this current line and then the line after that is going to be very determinative. They've got a big, huge thing coming their way. If everything goes the way we think it is, the sale of the air rights and property
has been progressing well.
And there's no reason why it won't happen. That means that our lodge, 147 Sarasota, is going to get an influx of a massive amount of money into its coffer. which changes things. Money. I've been in organizations. I've been in church organizations and all around that kind of stuff. Parachurch organizations, rescue missions. I worked on staff at a rescue mission that was worth $36 million in Denver, Colorado.
Dang.
And that changes things. So we'll see.
He's talking about $1.5 million.
Right.
A lot of money.
A lot of money. A lot
If
of money
things
is coming.
Go according to the contracts and the plan.
Right.
And our job this year was to get that deal done.
Right.
Which, although difficult, in my opinion, is the easier part of the whole thing, because whoever's responsible when the money comes in is got a whole nother set of challenges.
And that's
to deal with.
and that's totally my point. The strength of the line this year and next year will be tested.
Yeah.
That it will be tested because money changes everything. And when you see a gigantic mountain of money come pouring in there, everybody's intentions and everybody's, where they're at is going to be tested. And I think that there's some strong leadership in line there.
Yes.
If the elections go the way I think they're going to go, and I'm just one vote, but if it goes the way I think it's going to go, then I think there's some men in line there that could really take 147 and make a real difference in the community and in Masonry there. And I hope they do. I hope they do. You and I will probably be more on the sidelines because of the podcast. It's our desire to,
and we should be,
to go national and represent the craft nationally with the podcast. That's kind of our goal in the back of our minds, which is probably going to necessitate that we take a position on the sideline a little more.
Yeah, we're going to have to travel.
Yep.
I imagine we'll be traveling to many states and doing some interviews. And
if it goes the way I want it to go, yes, that will be the case. And we'll get to meet all you guys out there who we talk to all the time from around the country and maybe even from around the globe about the craft and what does Masonry have to offer this country, in the future. Does it have anything to offer? And what is that it has to offer? That's kind of where... That's the question we're going to be asking in 2024. Do we have anything to offer? And if so, what is it? And then from there, how do we help lodges around the country implement it?
I think that that's the big one for me. We hear a lot of people talk about how much they wish there was more Masonic education. And
Right.
People drone on about it all the time. Well, look, Fred and I are about put up or shut up.
Put up or shut
Here's
up,
some
baby.
Masonic education. You want Masonic education?
Come
we'll
on.
give you a full day from 9 to 5 of solid Masonic education. Now, whether you show up or not, that's on you.
Right, yeah.
And that'll tell us if this is something that you really do want, is real Masonic education.
Right.
If you show up and you guys really do enjoy this, like we do in everything, we will publicize exactly how we went about setting this up, who you need to talk to, how you organize the event. We'll put the whole play plan together for other states and other districts to do these kinds of events.
Yeah.
And, we'll pick it up and refine it and hopefully keep doing more and get better and better at it. And we'll be very public about all of that so that everyone can benefit.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Not financially necessarily, but
you
can benefit from producing real Masonic education to as many people as possible.
That's right, yeah. And then in my mind, the officers throughout the state of Florida, it's if we could get a representative from every lodge, or generally a good mix of every lodge throughout the state to show up to this symposium and take back with them not only the education that they got, but the idea of education back to their lodge or their district, and go to their Master Mason Association meeting and say, hey, look what 23 is doing, and can we do that? How do we do that? Let's get a hold of these guys and let's start doing this Masonic education so that we have something to offer. That's going to be my big thing. That's my theme for 2024. What are we doing? Okay, so we have a huge organization with a ton of money, and a governmental system with a Grand Lodge all the way down to the local Blue Lodge in place right now. So what can we do to benefit the future of this country, like the in the early days of this country that Masonry did? So
Spread light.
Spread light, man,
That's
and bringing men together, under the desire for fellowship, to be good men, to seek truth, and to benefit those around us, because we need it. We need it badly, and I think this is an avenue for change. Anyways, I'm preaching. So what are we talking about today, brother? What on earth are we going to talk about? Because I have no idea.
We're divulging from the Florida State educational system.
Are we now?
And we're branching out into the wonderful world of Masonic mysteries.
Masonic mystery. That's right.
Masonic mysteries.
And this particular Masonic mystery is known as the Morgan Affair, which
Yes.
I think is a great title. The Morgan Affair. That's so awesome.
It is. It is. The Morgan Affair is something that people probably have heard of the story. They may not know the details, but they know there was a case where Masons murdered somebody.
Ooh, yes,
And that's what
right.
we're talking about.
And we're not talking about the children and the goats and all that stuff. We're
No,
talking about an
yet.
actual man.
Yes.
Let me.
We do want to talk about the goats. We will get to that. We are going to talk about where did all this stuff come from.
Right. Yeah.
And we're going to take it point by point, and we're going to talk about it on this show, and we're going to show both sides of the story, the facts that we have and our inside information as Masons,
That's correct.
to try to help you get a more well-rounded picture of some of this stuff. that's
William
out
Morgan,
there.
who was he? Well, William Morgan was born in 1774, and he disappeared, dun, 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 in 1826, was a resident of Batava, New York, whose disappearance and presumed murder in 1826 ignited a powerful movement against the Freemasons, a fraternal society that had become influential in the United States, you think? After Morgan announced his intention to publish a book exposing Freemasonry's secrets, he was arrested on trumped-up charges. His disappearance soon after he disappeared soon after and was believed to have been kidnapped and killed by Masons from Western New York. The allegations surrounding Morgan's disappearance and presumed death sparked a public outcry and inspired Thoreau Weed and others to harness the discontent by focusing the new anti-Masonic party in opposition to President Andrew Jackson's Democrats.
Correct.
It ran a presidential candidate in 1832, but was nearly defunct completely by 1835. Not a long run there. So that's William Morgan. He was, by occupation, a stonecutter, a bricklayer, a storekeeper, and an author. So that's interesting to me that he was in the trades. He was a tradesman.
Yep.
But it goes on to say, you got anything on your side? This was from Wikipedia. So, take it for what it is. If you've got information that disputes any of this, speak up, guys, because Wikipedia it's a community base, so it could be wrong.
So there is some published information on Freemasonry.bc. This is British Columbia now.
Oh, okay. The Canadians.
He was a Canadian Mason. This is where he apparently became a Mason, was in Canada. What you're talking about is when he was living in upstate New York.
Right.
Now, they're saying this is a Canadian, official publication, and they're saying that they cannot confirm he was ever made a Mason.
Right. That says that here as well.
It's doubt. There's no records of his raising or lodge membership, but it is documented that he did receive the Royal Arch in the Western Star Chapter, RAM, number 33 of Leroy, New York, on May 31st, 1825.
Right, and Wikipedia verifies that as well. As you're reading it, I'm
really?
seeing it. Yep, same thing.
They suppose that he was an eavesdropper and lied his way into a lodge in Rochester.
Correct.
It was a little easier probably back then than it is today. We have all these wonderful apps and things that we can use to
Right.
confirm, but back then they didn't. But they think he imposed on a friend or an employer who vouched for him to get him into Wells Lodge number 282 in Batavia, which is, I
Right.
think, where you said he was
Yeah,
living at the time.
Batavia.
So he was active in Masonry for a time. But
So let me, if he received the Royal Arch degree, then he's definitely was raised a Master Mason, right? You can't receive the Royal Arch unless
Well,
you're raised.
this is 1825.
Okay.
Like, how did they verify things? You were
Right.
generally vouched for by somebody.
Right,
That's
right.
how you probably got
And
into
you
these
had to
things.
you had to know the
So he's
the
from
word.
Canada. He's got a friend saying, "Oh yeah, he's good. He's good. He's from Canada. He's a Mason." And they let him in a lodge. He becomes a lodge member, and then as a member of a lodge, he's able to get into the York Rite. Now, keep in mind, we document certain things in Freemasonry. Okay, we always have, and we
Right.
always will. The memberships that we bring in when they're become entered apprentices, fellow crafts, and master masons is documented. Always has been, always will be.
Right.
So, as a Mason, we can tell you that the fact that there are no records of him being initiated, passed, and raised tells us that most likely he wasn't an actual Mason.
Right.
Not really.
Right, right. The here in Wikipedia under disappearance it says, since Masons place their hands on a Bible and promise not to reveal the passwords and grips of the degrees, several members of the Batavia Lodge published an advertisement denouncing Morgan for breaking his word by authoring the book.
So
We'll talk about the book.
This is what got him into the hot water.
An attempt was also made to set fire to Miller's newspaper office and print shop. So this was the man. I moved ahead, but this is the book that he planned on publishing, revealing all of the secrets of Masonry.
So let's get to why he was doing that, or why he even thought about doing that.
Right.
So he is, now imagine you got into a lodge of Masons in New York. It's a big city. Rochester's probably not that big. It's like, it's like, I'm from there. And when I grew up there, it was like, we were the rednecks of the North. Like,
Is that right?
It's not a huge city. It wasn't when I lived there, so it certainly couldn't have been when he was there.
I've never been past the city, so I don't know
Oh,
anything
really?
about anything
Niagara,
north. Never been up there.
Rochester. I grew up in these towns.
I think I went on a class trip somewhere up there. I know it was cold, and I wanted to go home.
You
That's all
probably
I
saw
knew.
the falls. You were in Buffalo.
Yeah.
So he's in a lodge. He's now active in the lodges. He's doing Masonic speeches. He's participating in degrees.
Okay.
It's documented that he actually signs the charter for the Royal Arch. However, although he did all these things, he did take part in degrees and do speeches, and he actually signed to become a founding member of the Royal Arch chapter. He signed the petition, but suspicion of his regularity began to grow, and his name was omitted as a member when the charter was granted. So at some point, they started to become wise, like, wait a second.
Wait
This guy's
a
acting a little
second.
funny for a Mason from, he should know certain things. And he didn't, but he learned a lot, even though he wasn't. As a Master Mason, we're pretty open about things. So if you're able to sneak your way into a lodge, you would be able to find out a lot of our secrets, for sure.
Absolutely.
But-
You absolutely would. If we let you in as a presumed Master Mason, you'd know everything.
Yes.
All you got to
would.
do is show up and pay attention.
Right. And you're going to do degree work and stuff, so you're going to literally see
Right.
the rituals and the secrets for
This is the
yourself.
reason why we, do the things we do as far as keeping the door closed and keeping our secrets a secret. But anyway, go on.
It became known that he was not regular. And this started to hurt his reputation in the fraternity. And like I said, they removed his name from the petition of becoming a Royal Arch. And this made him quite disenfranchised with the fraternity, I guess you could say. And it became known that he had applied for a copyright on a book, which was to expose Masonic rituals,
Right.
secrets, and procedures. This is an expose that he was going to write. And he's not that involved in Masonry now. He was probably kind of shunned in the Masonic community. I'm sure they were mad at themselves. Think of how lax they must have been
Right.
in that lodge to not
Right.
follow up.
And
or
where's
check.
Grand Lodge on this,
But we've
right?
seen it with our own eyes. People come in, and if someone vouches for the guy,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like, okay, hey,
All right,
you're
yeah,
good.
hey, you're in,
good.
you're in,
his
man.
guy. Okay, no problem.
Right.
It happens, and that's a decision that every worshipful master in the state of Florida is personally responsible for, is to check that stuff.
Right. I know you went through that once. We had
Yeah.
a bunch of Grand Lodge guys in, and then there was some visitors, and we had to stop and actually do the work to verify who they were. And one man was not allowed into the Master
Yes,
Mason Lodge
that's
because
right.
of it.
Yeah.
He could not show,
He couldn't
and we could
properly
not verify.
He was vouched for, but the person vouching was not even initiated yet.
Right. So
So-
it was like, sorry, man, we can't do that. And it was the right way to go. Had the Grand Lodge guys not been there, we probably potentially might have let him in.
Yeah.
That's just one example.
It was a tough call.
It
to
was
make
a tough
someone,
call.
Like sit not. Yeah. But you have to protect the fraternity, right?
That's the
our
whole
job.
point. Right.
We do have rules. So this man has now got a contract to write a book. He contracts with 3 men to publish this work with him. David C. Miller, an entered apprentice of 20 years.
Wow.
So he remained an entered apprentice for 20 years.
For 20
this
years.
has been documented. He was stopped from advancement for costs.
Now, from what I understand, in New York, I don't know if it was back then, but now, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but entered apprentices can sit in on stated meetings.
Yeah, I don't know if every jurisdiction is this way, but in the state of Florida, we are required to open in the Master Mason degree, but we can drop the lodge down to a lower degree, like the entered apprentice degree.
And
then
conduct
allow-
business?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
You
that.
can't conduct business of the lodge, but you can conduct business in the entered apprentice degree.
Right, right. So
you
I
can't
think
vote on anything, important, but you can do Masonic education.
there are jurisdictions where entered apprentices and
Oh,
fellow
yeah.
crafts can sit in
Yeah.
on a meeting for the purpose of conducting business that comes before it.
A lot of lodges today, the Grand
Mhm.
Lodge jurisdictions, are looking at this because
Right.
our membership is dwindling everywhere. And they're like, hey, let these guys come to the meetings. Let's just get them involved. And
Right.
so they're looking at legislation to let the EEAs become full members before
Right.
they're even
Uh,
through the degrees.
because yes, opening and closing of the lodge is above their pay grade. I get that, but really, it's a business meeting once it's opened,
Yeah.
and there's no reason to kick them out. But something has to be. You got to figure something out there. How do you? Right, we're opening in a Master Mason degree, and EAs are in the room. Well, that kind of defeats.
Even 2 years ago, I think, or maybe 3, within the last few years, someone proposed legislation in Florida that we allow business to be done in the entered apprentice degree.
I don't know why you wouldn't.
It didn't pass.
It didn't pass.
So enough people thought that wasn't a good idea in
Right.
the state of Florida.
Well, and that's probably because the only people voting are Master
Yeah.
Masons.
If the EAs
So-
had a vote, it would have happened for sure.
Absolutely. So, all right. So the book on Freemasonry. Let me read this paragraph here off of Wikipedia under book on Freemasonry. Morgan claimed to have been made a Master Mason while he was living in Canada, and he appears to have briefly attended a lodge in Rochester. You already spoke about that.
Yep.
In 1825, Morgan received the Royal Arch degree at Leroy Western Star, chapter number 33. Having declared under oath that he had previously received the 6th degree that preceded it, it has never been established that he actually received these degrees, and, if so, from which lodge. Morgan then attempted unsuccessfully to help establish or visit lodges and chapters in Batavia, but he was denied participation by members who disapproved of his character and even questioned his claims to Masonic membership.
Mm-hmm.
Morgan finally announced that he was going to publish an expose titled Illustrations of Masonry, critical of Freemasonry and revealing their secret degree ceremonies in detail. Morgan declared that a local newspaper publisher, you already said this, David Chad Miller, had given him a sizable advance for the work. Miller is said to have received the entered apprentice degree, the first degree of Freemasonry, but had been stopped from advancement by the objections of Batavia Lodge members. Morgan was promised 1/4 of the profits, and the financial backers of the venture, Miller, John Davis, Morgan's landlord, and Russell Dyer, entered into a $500,000 penal bond, penal bond, with Morgan to guarantee its publication. $500,000. That must be the equivalent.
This is 1820 something, right?
Yeah, but that's $1
1826.
billion. That's like
That's a lot of money.
They're converting it into today's value.
Oh,
That's got to
okay.
be in today's money.
You think?
Something that represented a $500,000. Yeah, because $500,000 in that day and
It's
age
ridiculous.
would have been $50 million. Yeah,
Ridiculous.
yeah. So it was,
Even $500,000.
that's a ton
still.
of money back in those days.
Sheesh.
When a loaf of bread was 2 cents. Yeah, that's right.
So there's motivation there. mean,
Big
real
time.
motivation. You
Big
gotta deliver
motivation.
on that kind of money.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this was
And you've got involved 4 people.
4 people.
2 of them being Mason's one allegedly a Mason, one clearly not a master Mason,
Right.
but both disgruntled with the fraternity now.
Totally disgruntled. So that's what we have. We have Morgan of questionable character and questionable membership, and probably, I don't know, a man who it seems like he's one of those guys where drama just seems to follow the guy everywhere he goes,
Yeah.
and this is why people question him.
Yeah, he wasn't acting so masonically.
And that never
probably.
happens in our world. But
There
and
are
then-
people I've seen with my own eyes get raised past, and I'm like, wait,
right,
you
and
are a Mason, right?
and the man, his character finally catches up with him, and then he is questioned, and maybe I don't know, maybe some sort of committee is formed of 3 men. And maybe they, they look into his question. And these men, being courageous, men of courage and men of valor, come back with some kind of censure.
Do their job.
They do their job
Oh,
as Masons are supposed to, and not take the cowardly way out. They actually do their work and censure the man. And this turns the man against the craft.
Yeah.
And this begins his threats to publish this book. And now we move on from there.
Apparently, he was not shy about the fact that he was writing this book or
Right.
that he was receiving this much money. He apparently boasted in bars and on the streets of his progress in writing the book.
Right.
So it wasn't a big secret.
So he got on Facebook,
yeah, essentially.
got on Facebook and started blowing it up,
Yeah.
putting down other brothers.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
and like I said, the men of the committee had the courage to censure him. At least call him on it and not just try to make it go away. I really appreciate men like that. I
Yeah.
really do.
I mean, as Masons, that's what we're all called to do.
I agree.
Really?
Yeah, right. It's like with the Manatee Lodge. We don't want to go over that all over again, but Grand Lodge came down and did some really hard work.
Yeah.
And they
things
the
that
very unpopular
highly
thing.
necessary, but
They removed a sitting worshipful master from his position, which was a very, very difficult thing to do, but it was appropriate and it was the right thing to do. And those were men. I respect those men because they have courage to do what is right, even though they might be criticized for it, and they didn't care about that. Right is right, and we're lacking in men like that apparently these days.
I mean, we can't expect to really enjoy the benefits of the fruits of the values of our fraternity if we don't set a minimum expectation for being a member of our fraternity.
If we don't stand for it, how could we expect anybody else to?
Accountability is where it starts.
It starts
And
there,
it
man.
starts at the top. And
yeah.
so from what I understand, and I don't know for sure, I'm just hearsay, but I heard it's only the second time in the state of Florida that's happened.
That's right. That is correct. You're right about
A
that.
sitting master was removed in his term.
This was no small deal for
No.
Grand Lodge to come together and make that decision. It was no small deal at all. That took a lot of courage.
A lot of courage.
Yeah.
Big cojones. as
Big
we say.
cojones, man. Yeah.
Now, you and I have the, I guess, pleasure of lived it, and we know the person.
Right,
And
we know.
had personal experiences with the
Right.
man.
Yep.
Saw his lodge, know the guys that were affected. Like, we really know the details
Firsthand.
probably more than the Grand Lodge does. We
Absolutely.
probably know more details.
Yep.
But it was enough for them to take action. And what they did in doing that was showed the entire state, we do have a bar.
It matters.
You do have expectations.
Masonry matters.
We are going to hold you to be, what you put in, what you publicly say in your
That's right.
privately, secretly say in your obligation.
You secretly say in your obligation,
But
which
we
you
are gonna-
publicly live out.
This is what's required for the future of our fraternity to prosper. We
Yeah.
have to hold ourselves accountable.
That's right.
Now, this is what they were trying to do in their day. They found someone who's a Cowan and an eavesdropper,
Right.
and they tried to make sure he wasn't allowed to continue the nonsense.
Right.
And that, for lack of a better word, pissed the guy off. And
Totally.
he's like, well, I'm getting something out of this, and
That's
decides
right.
to write a book.
So
And he gathers together a friend who was also a reject from the same lodge,
right.
essentially.
Yeah.
And they get a couple of money guys, and now they're like, ooh, we hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
We're going to do this. And this is at a time when politically Freemasonry was really in the mind of people at the time.
Well, if you think about the time frame, this is leading up to the Civil War.
Yeah.
And then right through the Civil War. I think there were other. This thing became resolved in 1869. I think is where we're headed that way. But anyways, from 1827 through the Civil War. So politically speaking, politics was absolutely on fire, and national politics. The country was
nasty
dividing
business,
right down the center. Commerce, the abolition movement in Europe, which made it illegal for any entity of the crown to trade in slave products that had anything to do with slavery. So the entire cotton industry and the entire tobacco industry from the crown was turning back to India and away from the United States. So the money was slowly being drawn out of the plantations, and the slave owners were starting to feel the pinch as we got closer and closer to the Civil War. It was a time of great unrest, politically.
Yeah.
So and this is happening literally right during that time,
Yeah, and you can imagine, like, today we know about the biases and the fears people have of our fraternity.
Right.
But imagine then when we literally were involved in politics. Masons
absolutely were.
They were definitely involved.
Especially local politics.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean the sheriff, the mayor, the council, judges. Everybody was a member of the lodge.
Yeah, this was the only Facebook group going at the time.
Apparently so.
If you wanted to be part of something, you needed to be a Mason. It connected you to a lot of people, and we treat each other as equals. So there's definitely an appeal, I think, to many affluent people to be part of a fraternity at that time who could have some upward mobility socially, because
Correct.
they're getting to rub shoulders with judges and regular people. Plumbers, and advertising guys, probably they were all there too.
And I think the benefit, and back then and even today, is that the people that you rub shoulders with have been verified to be reliable people.
Yeah.
And that's the point. And that goes back to what we were just talking about. If we don't take it seriously, if we don't censure those who behave badly while they're in office, and if we don't take it seriously, then we lose that.
We got whole lodges of Morgans.
We got whole lodges of
Minos. Masons in name only.
Oh, Minos. Masons in name only.
But not living the life.
But not living the life. It's true. It's true.
And my wife, has heard me complain over the years. I've had my personal experiences, and I brought them home.
Yes. Not a great idea.
Not like I'm going home to complain, but I've come home in some foul moods. And my wife notices. And,
yeah, they do that.
I don't even tell all the details to her, but she knows, oh, this is a bad day in Masonry. And I had a lot of those. A lot. I'm just being honest.
I'm glad you are.
Back in the day, it was a lot worse, okay? But you still have some bad days. And she's like, you know what? Don't feel bad, because I was involved in the church. It's the same.
Well,
like
wherever you have
group,
humans, there's
group,
humans.
You're going to be disappointed because most of the people aren't living up to the ideals.
That's a really brilliant insight, because that's what happens. Any organization, successful organization, that forgets its charter, that forgets the reason why it existed in the first place, always becomes useless, and becomes and it fails. And I would say the same thing. I've been in. You guys know, I've been in church work and church government for well over 30 years. And I can tell you that a lot of the churches out there have forgotten their original mission. And I'm not going to go into what I believe that is, but they've forgotten it, and they've become nothing more than poorly run social clubs with poorly produced music. Believe me, it's not good out there musically. And they've forgotten. This is an organization that changed the calendar, that turned the Roman world upside down. That separated, that stopped slavery all over the world. And now, I don't even know what to say about it. But the same thing with Masonry. If we don't take it seriously, if we don't, do the work, do the hard things, then we're going to end up the same way. Look at the Boy Scouts of America. They forgot who they were.
Just saw a documentary on that.
Yeah, they forgot who they were, and now they're in disarray. If there even is such a thing. As the Boy Scouts of America anymore. They forgot who they were, and they did not follow the precepts that made them great.
Yeah.
Is anybody listening to this? Is this thing on? I hope so. I hope it is.
I hope our leaders are listening.
I hope so.
That's where it really has to start. The
That's
leadership
right.
has to hold people accountable to being Masons.
That's right. That's
and,
right.
The fear that you have has to be trumped by your love for the fraternity.
I agree. I agree.
It is scary. It's scary. It's
And-
scary. You don't want to be unliked by anybody. Trust me, I get it. It's not a
I
good
get
feeling.
that. But I demand to be held accountable.
Me too.
I don't
Yeah.
want to be a hypocrite. I do not want to be hypocritical in any of the things I do in life. So, I am very careful with the way I behave and the things that I do within the fraternity because it's just my nature. I don't need another social club, man. I don't. I really don't. I want benefit from this. If there's no benefit to my life from this, I don't really need it. And I don't have time for it. You know what I'm saying? I want this craft has revolutionized some portions of my life.
Yeah.
My life is a lot better today. Ask my wife because of this.
Same.
Because of this fraternity.
Yep.
And this non-religious, non-political fraternity of good men trying to help each other to become better men by seeking light, by seeking truth, by community outreach. Though we're not a community outreach, we're a fraternity, but by giving ourselves to others
Right.
in brotherly love and affection, I get something out of it. If I'm not going to get anything out of it, if it's just another social club where we go to the shrine, every once in a while and have drinks and stuff, which I don't mind doing, I actually enjoy doing that,
Hey.
but I don't need that. I don't need all the headaches,
Right.
right? So I'm sorry about that rabbit trail, guys. I just felt like I needed to pound the heck out of that one. All right, disappearance.
I'll tell you because I'm at the end of the line. I have literally 2 more meetings to hold and 1 degree I'm going to be
the
part
end of a 7-year journey.
a run. It's a run. It's been a run, and I've been active, so I felt all the bumps.
Nearly a decade. So you're going to be 8 years in this.
No, not that long. Probably 6 years.
6 years. Wow. That's
Uh,
that's a lot of time invested, man.
But, when you're in a leadership position, you're ultimately showing everyone else the way. You're supposed to give light to them. So one of the things I made sure to do is, like you said, I'm well aware of my flaws. Well aware. I hold myself accountable. And so I've made at least 2 major mistakes that I can come to mind now as the master of my lodge. And in both instances, I very publicly humbled myself in front of my lodge and
Right.
tried to make my mistakes a learning experience for the other guys coming up. So
Right.
they can see, one, how to behave when you do make a mistake, because the right thing to do is to earnestly look at yourself and earnestly apologize. And then try to make something positive come from it. Like, that's really the best we can do.
Right.
And if you're going to be a leader, you have to show people you're human. You make mistakes. The difference
That's right.
is you're going to hold yourself to account as a Mason. Like you said, I want to be held accountable.
That's right.
If no one's going to hold me accountable,
I don't need
damn it, I'll hold myself accountable.
And I can hold myself accountable, but honestly, I just go back to what I said. If nobody's going to hold me accountable for the things that I do and say as a Mason, then I don't need it. I really don't need it. It's of no benefit to me. Masonry has a benefit. This isn't the Moose Lodge, man. This isn't the Eagles. Nothing against those guys. We stopped at the Eagle Lodge on the way.
You can be both.
You can be both. It's a fun place. They do a lot of good stuff, but that's not what this is. This
No.
is a fraternity that
We make good men
proposes to change your life
Right.
direction and attitude towards the things you do. And if you're in Masonry for any length of time and there's no change in the way you behave and the things you do, then why bother, brother? Why bother? I mean, you could go to so many other organizations that are so much easier to get involved in. You know what I mean? It's
that's
just so much easier,
Yeah.
for goodness sakes. I just don't understand it. And I know brothers who have been at it they've been in the fraternity for years and years and years. And I look at their lives and I'm like, dude, I'm not really sure you're understanding what's going on here, man. But whatever.
And you can get frustrated with leadership and say they're not doing the things they should be doing.
Right.
All you have control over is yourself.
That's
at
right.
the end of the day.
So true.
So why don't you just focus on yourself? That's what I've tried to do. I've tried to show people the way that I think is right to be a Mason, and that's don't think you're not going to make mistakes, but embrace them as learning experiences. Now, we're talking a lot about ourselves. I apologize.
That's okay.
So we're talking about facts here. And you might think, oh, they're Masons. They're going to be on the side of Masonry in this Morgan affair. Ha! No. We just want to give you the facts that we know and our experience as Masons so that you can make an educated decision
Right.
yourself
That's
about
right.
whether you believe the rumors around the Morgan affair. So what we know we have is a Mason who claims to have been made a Mason in Canada.
Correct.
We cannot produce any documents to back that up.
Right.
His lodge in New York didn't believe it and basically outcast him. So
Right.
he finds another disgruntled Mason from the same lodge and gets a major contract to write a book about the secrets of Freemasonry
Right.
with 2 other people. Now, the brethren at the time, this guy's going around bragging,
Right.
having drinks, right? He's making himself a spectacle. And Masons are everywhere. They hear all
Everywhere.
of this.
Right.
And the brethren are getting really freaking worried. Like, whoa, this guy's literally going to tell all of our secrets, and it's going to destroy our fraternity. In their mind, that's what they thought.
Right.
If people find out the secrets, we're done. Because we're no longer going to have the appeal of the secret society.
Right.
In reality, they know, as we do, our secrets are never going to hurt us if they
Right.
came to light.
That's
Never
right.
going to hurt us in any way, shape, or form. In fact, they'd be very anticlimactic for the public.
They absolutely would.
Which is why it's got to be spectacle, because it's not interesting unless it's spectacle. So they know that he's probably going to say some things that aren't true. But people won't know the difference because he's like, I'm a Mason, guys. I've seen the secrets. So, yeah, there's a real fear about what this guy is about to do. It's a big deal, and it's known. So he is actually arrested for the theft of a shirt and tie.
Right. Yeah.
That's okay. That seems suspicious.
Well, and the one who arrested him apparently was the sheriff was a Mason.
Oh yeah. He was actually acquitted of that.
Right.
Apparently, he didn't commit the crime that he was accused of and held bound. But immediately after he was released, he was arrested for failure to pay a debt of $2.68.
Right. Which is the equivalent of like 50, 60 bucks.
Okay. He didn't
Right.
pay a debt. He's arrested a second time. Okay, this looks a lot to me like the guy's being hassled by Masons that are in positions of power.
Big time. That's obviously what's happening. They want him to leave.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
Right.
One day after he was held behind bars, someone paid his debt. When he was released, he left in a coach with several men, apparently not of his own free will. People saw this. There were witnesses.
Right.
It looked like they kind of took this guy from prison, stuffed him in a car, and drove off with him.
Right.
He was taken to Fort Niagara. This is documented. We can verify it. And he was confined there, and that was the last time he was seen
Correct.
ever in public. So what happened? This is where the mystery starts.
Right. Right.
What really happened to him?
Well, Wikipedia's got a little bit of blurb on this too. The generally accepted version of events is that Morgan was taken into a boat in the middle of the Niagara River and thrown overboard, where he presumably drowned, since he was never seen again in the community. In 1848, Henry L. Valance allegedly confessed on his deathbed to taking part in Morgan's murder, a purported event recounted in Chapter 2 of Reverend C.G. Finney's anti-Masonic book, The Character, Claims, and Practices of Workings of Freemason, 1869. In October 1827, a badly decomposed body washed up on the shore of Lake Ontario.
Yes.
Many presumed it to be Morgan, and the body was buried as his. However, the wife of a missing Canadian named Timothy Monroe, or Munro, positively identified the clothing on the body as that which had been worn by her husband at the time of his disappearance. One group of Freemasons denied that Morgan was killed, alleging that they had paid him $500 to leave the country. Morgan was reportedly seen later, including in other countries, but none of the reports were confirmed. Eventually, Ellie Bruce, the sheriff of Niagara County and a Mason, was removed from office and tried for his involvement in the Morgan's disappearance. He served 28 months in prison after being convicted of conspiracy for his role in kidnapping Morgan and holding him against his will before his disappearance. 3 other Masons, Lawton Lawson, Nicholas Chesbrough, and Edward Sawyer, were convicted of taking part in the kidnapping and served sentences. Other Batavia Masons were tried and acquitted. Author Jasper Riley suggested that Morgan was probably killed by local Masons, as all other scenarios are highly improbable. Historian H. Paul Jeffers also considers this to be more credible explanation. In Reminiscence of a Journalist, it's a publication by a man named Cogdon, cites a third-handed account that Morgan was murdered by certain very zealous Freemasons, and notes that the resolute anti-Mason sentiment caused by elections to go to non-Masons for a number of years afterwards. I screwed that one all up. But.
No, that's definitely where it led.
So there were Masons who were convicted for their involvement in that, but nobody can say that they murdered him.
So here's what we know as Masons. This is what we can verify.
Okay.
You're right. People said that this guy was kidnapped and murdered at the time. He was missing. So apparently it became more and more important for Masons to find this guy and prove that they weren't actually behind killing him. Freemasons indignantly denied the charges. As time went on and he wasn't found, members of the craft disavowed any approval of any such acts. Governor Clinton, the past Grand Master, issued proclamation after proclamation, the last one offering $2,000 reward that, if living, Morgan might be returned to his family, and if murdered, that the perpetrators might be brought to punishment. So that's a Grand Master who's like, at this point, he's offering cash. Either show me a body or confess. Like, we got to get this off of our reputation. He knew how important it was. And it wasn't very difficult to discover that Masons were actually part of Morgan's disappearance. He went 125 miles to Fort Niagara, and actually it wound up being 3 members of the craft, Cheeseborough, Lawson, and Sawyer, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to seize and secret him, together with Eli Bruce, the sheriff, and one John Whitney. They all served terms in prison for actually abducting him.
Right.
They didn't confess to murdering him, and it could never be proved because they didn't have a body, right?
Right.
They had people who said, yeah, we did probably kidnap this guy. Maybe we were wrong. But they didn't admit to killing him, but they served time in prison. So as far as the Freemasons are concerned, this is good. Like, people got what they had coming. And it should have been over. But a body was found in 1827, about 40 miles below Fort Niagara.
Right.
Morgan's widow identified the body, although it was dressed in other clothes than her husband had worn when he was alive. The body was bearded, although Morgan was clean-shaven. And the body had a full head of hair, although Morgan was bald.
Could be a couple of giveaways there. I don't know. Possibly.
Thurlow, a man named Thurlow Weed.
Yeah, that's what it says here in here too. And what I was reading there is it's the same thing, that the wife of a Canadian who was missing,
yes,
positively identified the clothing on that body as her husband. So the fact that being Morgan's body is in serious doubt.
Right. So apparently this man, Thurlow Weed, was accused of having the corpse shaved and of adding long white hairs to his ears.
Oh, that's not in the Wikipedia account.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were accusations that he literally tried to make this body look more like Morgan. Yeah, he cut off hair and allegedly added it to the hairs of his ears and nostrils to simulate the appearance of Morgan. The first inquest decided that this was indeed the body of William Morgan. 3 inquests were held in all. The third decided on the unimpeachable evidence of Miss Sarah Monroe, who minutely described the body, its marks, and the clothes it wore, that the corpse was not William Morgan, but Timothy Monroe of Clark, Canada. Her husband, Okay, so a woman said, "This is my husband.
This is my husband.
not that guy."
Not that guy.
And
She should know.
yeah, so this is scandalous, electrifying, but politically, you got a lot to work with there.
Right.
You're
So
like,
let's finish up with the aftermath, the anti-Masonic movement that this sparked.
Okay, yeah, that's where we're going. So now you got 3 men in prison for taking the body. You have a body that, although was found not to be him, initially was identified as him.
Right.
That's enough. That's enough for people to run with it.
Yeah, with they all took to Facebook and Twitter and just blew this thing up. That's right.
So keep in mind there were multiple inquests, and the last one, a jury found and reversed the identification. Although
Right.
that's not as exciting, is it?
Yeah, right.
The fact is, the final inquest was that, when we looked at all the evidence, it wasn't his body. But no matter what the truth is, fuel was already on the fire, baby.
Right.
It was burning.
It was burning.
And so politically, we're talking about a party, people, Masons, who didn't have an official political party.
Correct.
And they're not really about, trying to take over politics, but they're
No.
affluent people who are members of the fraternity.
Correct. Right.
And so there are judges, there are sheriffs, there are people. And I believe it's the same in England. I believe a lot of people are afraid of Freemasonry because it's so ingrained.
In politics.
Yeah,
And
the people
politics, and of course the higher income people, especially apparently in Great Britain, and you guys listening across the pond can correct us on this, but many of the affluent people, I don't know if that's true anymore, but many of the affluent people back in the day were Masons. So Masons had a presence in the aristocracy, big time. So this is why people fear Freemasons, because they tend to be people who of greater means. And if you practice, make good choices, work hard, and are honest, guess what happens? You become successful. It just happens to you. And maybe that's the reason why Masons are generally more successful, is because they're hardworking, honest people. I don't know. Just saying.
Now, I'm hearing that there were rumors that Masons were trying to purchase the manuscript from him for the sum of $1,000,
Okay.
which was probably a lot of money at that time, I imagine.
Right. It says here it's the equivalent of $27,000.
Really?
Yeah, that would be so. Let me read a little bit of this. If hopefully I'll read it better than I just read that other part. Soon after Morgan's disappearance, Miller published Morgan's book, which became a bestseller because of the notoriety of the events surrounding his disappearance. Miller did not say that Morgan had been murdered, but that he had been carried away. Accounts circulated of Morgan having assumed a new identity and settled in Albany, Canada, or the Cayman Islands, where he was said to have been hanged as a pirate. New York Governor DeWitt Clinton, also a Mason, offered a $1,000 reward, $27,000 in current value, for information about Morgan's whereabouts, but it was never claimed. The circumstances of Morgan's disappearance and the minimal punishment received by his kidnappers caused public outrage, and he became a symbol of the rights of free speech and free press. Protests against Freemasonry took place in New York and in the neighboring states. Masonic officials disavowed the actions of the kidnappers, but all Masons were under a cloud of suspicion.
Yeah.
Thurlow Weed, a New York politician, gathered discontented opponents of President Andrew Jackson, a Mason, into an anti-Masonic party, which gained the support of such notable politicians as William H. Seward and Millard Fillmore. Wow, no kidding. In the 1829 campaign, other Jackson rivals, including John Quincy Adams, joined in denouncing Masons. And in 1832, the anti-Masonic Party filed William Wirt as its presidential candidate and Amos Elkmaker as his running mate, and they received Vermont's 7 electoral votes. By 1835, the party had become morbid everywhere but Pennsylvania. I don't know what morbid, I guess dead. Everywhere but Pennsylvania, as other issues, such as slavery, this is what I was talking about, became focused of a national attention. in 1947, Adams published a widely distributed book titled Letters on the Masonic Institution that criticized the Masons' secret society. So it became a political football. They were looking for political footballs in that day, something to revive the politicians were figuring out just how lucrative this federal government thing was becoming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why all of the rivalries and all the different parties were popping up here and there. Eventually they settled on a railroad lawyer who started a new party called the Republican Party. His name was Abraham Lincoln, who was a railroad lawyer. He was a lawyer for the railroads, and he proposed a new party. And the issue that they settled on, rightfully so, was slavery. And that changed everything. And of course, in my opinion, we don't know the truth about why all of that stuff happened. That's a discussion for another day. Certainly not for this podcast. But
not today.
It changed everything.
Yeah.
It changed our country permanently to this day. We lost the federalist constitutional republic that our founding fathers put together. By the time they shot President Lincoln, and reunification was not part of the plan any longer. We lost our true Constitution, and here we are today. Fast forward to Kennedy being assassinated by his own administration, which we now know is true. And this is the result. And here we are today with this hybrid.
I didn't know he was assassinated by his own administration.
Yeah, well, it's pretty good evidence that there were operatives in the CIA. There's a guy named I'm not going to remember his name, but there's a Brit. He was a member of Parliament, and he's done extensive studies. He loved Kennedy, and George Galloway, and George Galloway did a pretty good. He's very controversial, so if you go and look up George Galloway, he's very, very controversial. He has a podcast called Moats. Moats stands for the mother of all talk shows. And he's very flamboyant, a wonderful speaker. He was a member of Parliament, and he's done a lot of study on the death of President Kennedy because he just loved Camelot. That was when he grew up. It was a big deal for them.
Sure.
And they saw the future. Of Kennedy was dismantling, that industrial, the war-making industrial complex. He was against the warfare welfare state, and it is pretty good evidence that has been released, and more is being released that he was definitely assassinated by people within his own administration.
It's funny you bring that up because I was just reading an article yesterday.
Just yesterday,
literally,
he says.
That you know who Rob Reiner is?
Rob Reiner, Meathead.
The director, right?
Yeah.
Rob Reiner and a journalist named Soledad O'Brien.
Sounds familiar. She was a commentator on MSNBC. Yeah.
I believe so. They claim
Yeah.
just this month
Yeah.
that they have done research into the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, and they claim to have found evidence of who was really behind the killing.
Wow.
So they have like a multi-part podcast coming out, and they claim there's 4 names that they can give you.
Right.
That they can prove were the people that killed JFK.
And I think that's where Galloway is also instrumental in this entire thing as well. Yeah. So it's and those documents were released. Those documents were sealed after Kennedy's assassination. They've been slowly being released. So what isn't redacted?
60 years now we're talking.
Yeah, and it's very clear that. Anyway,
they have so they're going to host a podcast called "Who Killed JFK." It's a 10-part podcast series featuring interviews with authors, witnesses, CIA officials, and forensic experts as part of their investigation into the 60-year event. It also includes interviews with a former Secret Service agent who earlier this year came forward with groundbreaking new evidence, according to iHeartMedia, which is distributing the series.
Wow.
It's kind of funny. We're just talking about that.
Yeah, well, and I have been, you guys know, who've listened to this podcast know, I don't take anybody's word for anything on national anything. I do the research, and I love to research deep, and I made the mistake of researching the actual true history of our country over the last 100 years, And if you do that, and if you really dig deep, you'll find out that everything that we've been taught, almost everything that we've been taught about our past is a lie. Especially if you look into the history of the Federal Reserve, and I know you guys are thinking I'm a conspiracy nut. I probably am. But if you look into a lot of the reasons why it was created and the things that it does and how it does it, and the people who created it and who were involved in it, you realize that the American dream of work hard, get into debt, buy a house, have kids, it's all been basically a Ponzi scheme for a whole lot of very, very wealthy global leaders. For sure the last 50 years, but I would say the last 100 years. And anyways, Merry Christmas on that one, and Happy New Year. Sorry about that. I don't know how I rabbit trailed you down that one, but I digress.
The lizard people control everything.
I think it's the Illuminati. I'm not sure, though, but I had to throw that in there. All right, so are we done with the Morgist affair?
What you
Go.
haven't heard
Finish up.
is the Masons story. So you heard the public story.
Right.
There was a whole version that Masonry has as to what happened to this man.
All right, finish up with that.
He was actually summoned to his lodge. Now, the master had been granted a sum of money from the sheriff of his lodge, a sum of up to $1,000 to make this go away. So,
interesting.
A bribe was allegedly offered to this man. We will give you cash. We will give you safe passage out of the country. We will care for your wife and family, and they'll join you in Canada if you go away and stop this nonsense.
This is being told to Morgan.
Yes.
Okay.
He was summoned to lodge, offered a deal, accepted the deal. His arrest and his release were planned in advance between him and the Masons.
Oh.
Allegedly.
Interesting.
He was assured of any amount needed up to $1,000 by the sheriff. He actually offered $500 and he accepted $500 if he would go to Canada, disappear, and the Masons would take care of his family and provide for and later send them to him. He agreed, allegedly. He was arrested and kidnapped, which made it easy to get him away from Miller and his associates, the people that he was indebted to money he had, right?
Oh, right.
It was a lot of money, and these people needed a product. And he was like, okay, my life is going to be miserable here if I release this. I'll be hated by everyone that is important in town who are Masons. I'm going to be ridiculed. So he agrees, allegedly, to take the money and go away. So his escape and travel was documented because it wasn't a secret. This was like part of the deal. He actually signed an agreement. And
no kidding.
Yes. Now, there were other confessions of complicity in the murder of Morgan. None of them were consistent with the facts, and doubtless they were of the same hysterical origins of all the other crap at the time. So we're in a situation where the Masons have a story where they actually passed him to Canadians at Niagara in the river. And now they're claiming that once he was there, after a while he was like, maybe I don't really need my family. I got all this cash and I'm kind of enjoying this life. And so they feel that his, whatever happened to him had nothing to do with them after that. There was an agreement. They got him out of the country. They resolved amicably. And if he died, they had nothing to do with it. So you said he was hung as a pirate or something, and they're saying
there's one of the stories, right?
That's like because he was he just got off on his own adventures with all the money and without his family, and he got into some shit and actually,
got himself
ended
killed
himself. So you have a story from the Masons, which can't be publicly verified, and you have a story that's publicly accepted in history now. And because it launched a political party is ingrained in part of our history as a country.
Right.
The anti-Masonic party was a deal.
It was.
People
It was a real party.
Really worried about Masons in politics.
Right.
But was it that, or was it an opportunity to
Right.
create an opposition party?
That's exactly what it was.
I can kind of see as a Mason how that's probably the case.
Like I said, at that point in the mid-1800s, prior to 1860, prior to the Civil War, these politicians were realizing just how lucrative this federal government thing was. Remember, the federal government was not supposed to be a thing. They were ready to go to war over a 3% tax. The federal government was supposed to be sustained solely on tariffs. It was never supposed to have its own income, its own city government. The Supreme Court was never to have its own building. It was supposed to be a circuit court that went from place to place. It was never supposed to be what it is. So these people were realizing just how lucrative this thing was about to become. They were looking at the Western territories. Lincoln was so focused on those Western territories, the land, and they were realizing just how far it went to the Pacific Ocean. They knew the riches, and that's what was happening here. Is the grift. Yeah. The grift was being set up.
Right.
And the grifters were positioning themselves. So, yes, opposition parties and gotcha campaigns. And
still goes on today.
The
Floyd thing. The death of Floyd.
Right.
It
lit
a
same
fire
thing.
all across the world. People use that.
Yeah, right.
It still happens. So you can see how that may have been a real thing.
Totally see that. Totally
because
get
we
that.
see it today. So
Yep,
people haven't
absolutely.
changed that much. But you also can't say for sure that something nefarious didn't happen to the guy. Masons admitted to some involvement in it. So, we're left with what we're often left with in history is we got to make a decision for ourselves, what's real. As a Mason, I find it incredibly hard to believe that a murder took place. No Mason who's trying to defend Masonry would go and violate their own obligations.
Why would they?
Why
would they? Right.
I really don't see that being the case, but I can't deny that it might have happened.
I don't think the sheriff and these men weren't financially invested. So what's the motive for murder here? That they're going to let he's going to let some secrets out? Well,
which happened.
Which happened
repeatedly and
right.
often.
Yeah. No, I don't see them. There's no motive.
So this is the worst they have on Freemasonry. Look at the big picture. This anti-Masonic party lasted all 20 years, I think.
No, it lasted 6 years. I think
the
it was
whole
6 years.
thing from start
the
to
whole
finish,
thing. Yeah,
where people even remembered it happened was like 20 years.
Right.
In the flash, in the sum of history, that's like, wow, that was like nothing.
It was nothing.
But now all these years later, people still say Masonry's bad because a man was murdered.
Right.
So this is the worst we have on Masonry, legitimately in documentation that a man may have been murdered by Masons who pretended to be a Mason. Now, if you look at any other group in history, literally any group, no matter how noble, you're going to find a lot more dirt than that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, think of the Catholic Church, which is incredibly important to so many people all around the world. The facts show a lot worse has happened there. But you still identify as Catholic, a lot of people, right?
Yep.
You're like, hey, that was that person, not me. I don't molest kids or whatever the
right,
are.
Right, yeah.
Because I believe in the values of my religion. So you have, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of cases in the Catholic Church that are bad. Really, you have all these cults that have popped up and hurt people. Even major religions today are hurting people and always have and always will in the name of their religion.
Governments, religions,
really any organization you're going to find.
Any organization.
Look at the Boy Scouts.
The Boy Scouts hurt a lot of
kids,
people.
Man. And all of Freemasonry's extremely long history, you have one allegation.
That's
true. That's a pretty strong case for Freemasonry. If you ask me, even if I wasn't a Mason and I compared our fraternity to all these other groups, I'd be like, whoa. This is a pretty good track record, I'd say.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I mean, and again, when you talked about when I became a Mason several years ago, it's going to be 3 years here, pretty quick. I knew nothing about the Morgan affair. I never heard about it. I never heard anything about it.
I don't think I had either, honestly.
It's not like it never made the news. There were no documentaries about it. It isn't marked on history, like what happened in the Roman Catholic Church, what happened in, all the different, things that have happened. I mean, I think that Freemasonry, the fraternity, is unique in that because of the way it's structured, that we have a state Grand Lodge, but really, Freemasonry is directed by the individual Blue Lodge. Each lodge directs its own destiny based on the principles of Freemasonry, which are enforced by Grand Lodge downward. So it kind of lends itself to autonomy, and if you look at each individual lodge as individuals, Yeah, some have problems. There's lodges that have, people have been arrested for stealing money from them. It happens.
Oh, yeah.
People have been embezzled money out of out of there and been arrested. There's been all kinds of controversy and stuff that goes on, but it's self-governing. It self-governs itself. In this case right here, if these Masons said, you know what, this is bad for everybody. We don't want this guy. We don't want this guy to get hurt. We don't want this. We don't want this anymore. They devised a plan, little dishonest in their plan, but they devised a plan to get rid of him, pay him some money, get him and his family out of the state, and they wanted to move on from it. Okay, that's fine. It's not necessarily illegal. What he did with his life after just spoke of his own character. Anybody who would come up to any organization and lie about who they are to get into it is a man who lacks character to begin with. So we know Morgan was not a man of character.
This is the kind of the Mason side of the story. Like, this is
I get that, right? Yeah, I totally get that.
He lied to us. Now he's going to lie on us. Like,
right.
It's a bad situation.
So it's an interesting story.
It is
from beginning to end because there's a lot of twists, and it doesn't really lend itself to a finale.
No, I mean, I could see a movie that tells the story both ways, and I'd be riveted.
Right.
Either way,
yeah,
it's like a cool story.
It really is.
I mean, it's never good to celebrate a life lost or potentially lost. I get that, but there's a lot of intrigue here.
There really is.
Whether you're a public anti-Mason or you're a Mason who's really interested in Masonry, and I think the lesson is, we shouldn't have acted in any way that could have gotten us publicly put in a position where even the accusation was made. And people were documented taking this guy. And so we were involved, clearly.
We were clearly involved
in some way.
Mistakes were definitely made.
Murder? I don't know.
I just don't see the motive.
I don't know.
I don't see the motive there. Opportunity, yes.
I guess the
means,
motive would have been a fear of the public getting lies about Masonry.
But there are already lies
but
about
you made it
Masonry.
Worse.
Right, yeah. And the big motivator is always money, financial gain, or the revealing of some personal ill.
Yes.
Right? So somebody knows something that you've done, and they threaten to go public with it, then that person ends up dead. Well, we know that's motive for murder right there. But how is that? How is this in any way? He's going to publish a book which could easily be refuted by just simply saying, no, that's not true.
And the thing is, here's the thing for me. If you found that body and it was mortally wounded in such a way that every Mason would know it was Masons,
right?
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, right.
Take an obligation, and the penalties are clear. If he was killed in that way, I would be much more on the side of, okay, Masons did some bad stuff here.
And that's probably the way he would have been
Think
killed,
about
right?
it.
Yeah, no, that's right.
If you were going to go
great point.
all that way, you would do it according to Masonic law, right?
Right,
because
exactly.
You're committing freaking murder, which is, it should be repugnant to any Mason to even consider that.
Right, exactly.
But if you were going to do it to protect your fraternity, you go all the way, right?
Probably so.
You're not going to suffocate a guy and drop him in a river.
No.
You're going to be like, you're going to die a Mason's death. And I'm going to give it to you as a Mason.
Right.
And what I'm saying here to people that aren't Masons is we have very ancient obligations that we take. These are part of the secrets that we keep alive.
Right.
And our obligations have a penalty tied to them. The penalties are symbolic, like everything else in Masonry.
Is all symbolic.
We don't actually build temples with our bare hands.
Right.
It's all kind of symbolic for things that we want to do in our life. The penalties are also symbolic.
Correct.
Nobody, to my knowledge, has ever received a Masonic penalty.
No.
In actuality. But if you were going to kill a guy in this manner, you would expect the penalty to have been exacted on the man.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So that, to me, kind of speaks to it's probably not a Masonic situation.
Yeah. I agree.
If indeed they found a body that had been mutilated in some way, I'd be like, okay.
I think the widow's, claiming of the body, not being Morgan, being of another man, is pretty convincing. And a woman in grieving for her husband and sees the body, she's not going to lie about that. And she's not going to be wrong about it either. And this is a documented case. So that body that they found was not Morgan, in my opinion. Therefore,
to the tribunal that was held. According to them, it wasn't.
Therefore, therefore, the mystery of
Right.
Morgan remains.
Right.
Nobody, there is no body.
Right.
There never will be a body. No one's going to know
No.
exactly what happened to Morgan except God Almighty himself.
And we know that Masons were involved in his disappearance. That's
Masons
not
were
questioned.
involved. There's no question about that.
So there's some bad stuff there.
Yeah, some bad decisions were made. But did a group of zealous Masons murder Morgan? In my opinion, no one could ever say for sure, but the evidence points against it, in my opinion.
As a Mason, looking at the evidence we have, it seems improbable.
Yeah, I agree.
Doesn't
I
mean it's
agree.
impossible, though. Even
Nope.
as a Mason, I know a lot of Masons who I'd be like, yeah, sure, I could see it. That guy,
I
yeah.
know a lot of Masons.
Probably.
I can. No, I'm not.
So,
gonna
you
go
know, even today we have guys like that in the fraternity who may be acting in some, unmasonic way and some misguided, like perverse idea of
Right.
what Freemasonry is supposed to be. It's possible that people can do bad things. They do.
They do all the time, right?
But in
I
the
get it.
totality of things, it's important to bring up that even if this is true, you have one case in the 1800s.
Right.
I'll hold that record up to any other organization in history.
Yeah, that's right. And I appreciate you saying that, but honestly, we don't need to. We don't need to justify our existence in the face of people who don't want to know any truth about the fraternity to begin with. Most of the people I find who criticize or have these opinions about Masonry, they enjoy it. They enjoy the fact that they can have these opinions. My daughter was talking to somebody in her church in Colorado, and the lady just blurts out, "Oh no, that's satanic."
Yeah.
And my daughter, who knows me very well and knows my background, said to this woman, "Well, my dad wouldn't be in it if it was satanic. He wouldn't. I know my dad. My dad is a Christian. He's a strong biblical teacher.
He's duped. He didn't get all the information. He's being manipulated.
And the good news is that my daughter's like, no, you're wrong.
Because I guess Satan wants you to raise money for charities, and Satan must want you to help other people become better people.
Right? Yeah, and it's just interesting. That person wants to believe that, because it makes them comfortable. It gives them some sort of cause select to say to people, she's somebody in the Christian realm, who goes around lifting up rocks looking for demons everywhere. She's one of those kind of people. And so this is an easy mark.
Yeah. Because you can't say for sure.
But I always ask people, I say, well, tell me, that's a pretty strong word. I guess I've gotten myself into something I wasn't aware of. Tell me, what is it exactly that you're saying is satanic about Freemasonry? And they'll, well, this, that, and the other. And I like to question them. I say, well, let me ask you a question. Are you talking about operative or speculative Masonry?
Immediately.
And then before they can answer, I'll say, are you talking about appendant bodies or Blue Lodge? And then I'll stop them there, and I'll say, you really don't know much about Masonry, do you?
Of course not.
Because if you can't answer me the basics, of it, and I like to ask him, well, what are the tenets? What is the main thing about Masonry that any Mason can tell you right off the top of their head? And that's going to be brotherly affection. Brotherly relief,
love,
and truth, man.
Yeah.
That's going to be the thing that pops right out of their mouth. That's not satanic, lady. But anyway, so this has been another award-winning podcast, in my opinion.
Well, look, go back and listen, because we are pretty open here. We've done shows on every degree, every lecture, every charge, everything we teach people. We've covered publicly on the air.
That's right.
Go find the satanic part.
Go find the satanic part.
We have it,
right?
And we've been active in it for many years.
Yep.
And look in history. We don't have a lot of cases of Masons abusing innocent people, or even ourselves, really, other than this one case that we're talking about now, which isn't even 100% sure. But and the totality, you got to look at the put it into perspective. Is all I'm saying. We don't have to defend ourselves, but let's put this into perspective. Is all I'm saying. Even if it is true, even if the worst happened, look at the totality of the organization, and you can find a lot to complain about as a Mason, But one of the things that you're probably never going to complain about is that we're a bunch of murderous thugs.
Yeah, that's right. We're
The
a bunch of
complaints you're
overweight
gonna
old
have,
dudes.
right? Are like, hey, we don't do this, or we don't spend enough on that. Those are the arguments most people have.
Right. That's
we're
right.
not doing the things we should be doing, maybe. But throughout all of history, you're not going to find a lot of cases of illegal activity.
That's right. That's right. Well, there's the music that signals the end of another podcast. This one will drop on time. And then keep in mind, guys, we'll be in Washington next week doing interviews and podcasts. So
This week, brother.
This week, I don't know where I'm at. This week we'll be in Washington D.C. We're going to do a lot of interviews. We're going to catch up with a lot of old friends and stuff. So we'll be publishing those in the weeks to come. And we will be faithful in dropping our weekly podcast on education for the craft that we love. And keep those cards and letters coming. Keep those emails coming, brothers from all over the world. We enjoy them. I missed a couple of emails that I meant to read on this one. Maybe on next one, I've got a couple of emails that came in that I want to read from brothers that have been shouting out to us. Before we go, brother Chris, worshipful master.
Yeah.
What do you got? What do you want to tell us on the way out?
Okay, I'd like to publicly say Fred is bribing me to leave the state of Florida. He's offered me the sum of $500 to get out. If my body's never found, you see the similarities here?
Oh, and
it's fun.
And on that note, we will see you all later.
Love you, mean it.